Greetings to everyone on this beautiful Friday afternoon from Mount Shasta. I hadn't really expected to open up this topic quite so soon, which is the world of spirit, which I started last week. It seemed like it was too serious. It's necessary, but it seems like it's too big and serious to deal with. Yet, in the light of the natural disasters that have washed through Bahamas and up the east coast of the US, of the challenges with the sudden deaths through violence, through mass shootings in this country, through the loss of suddenly plane crashes and accidents and war, things like that, that there's a huge misunderstanding, I think, or a lack of knowledge, and when we're all learning about what happens in the world of spirit when something happens suddenly and a beautiful being is here one day and is not the next, or in the next moment. And in a lot of ways, we've become numb to that, unless it happens to someone who they pass close to us. And then it touches us very deeply. But if it's extended from us through time and space, then what do we do with it? And how do we assist? What is our role in helping those in the space of loss here, but then the ones who have gone? The shock, the fear. We don't have exact words, we don't have exact science, we don't have anything except a knowing within our beings of soul and spirit that have been living within us for many eons of time. I'm not comfortable at this moment. But in the last few days, I have had an overwhelming sense, because I know that I am a vehicle of transmission for the other world, and have been for many, many years. And in that place of transmission, it's passing or honoring or helping the other side. More than this side, come to terms with it and then pass messages on to those who are here. And that's been happening an awful lot in the last month, last 2 months, because of everything that's going on. Many years ago, I was given some very poignant experiences to understand the connections. And I want to share a couple of things with you, with those who resonate, those who are seeking, those who are asking a question, wanting something, a little more clarity on something that's locked in their being. It was around not long after a couple of years after the beginning of the endless Iraq war. Everybody thought it was going to end. And I was in the presence of two very sweet 23-year-old women, and we were chatting, and they were sharing different things. And then this one of the young women said that she had a friend who, a former boyfriend, who had just come back from Iraq and on medical leave. And he had this really, really serious asthma. And they didn't know why he had it, and it was so serious that they sent him back here to the US to find out. And long and the short, he had never had any allergies, he had never had asthma, he had never had anything. He was very healthy, according to his mother, from day one. And this was out of the blue. They couldn't figure out what it was. And of course, the military doctors were putting on, it's the sand, it's the dryness, it's exhaustion, it's all of these different things that were contributing to whatever his symptoms were, but nothing definitive. And as we were talking, this young woman is out of the blue shared with her friend. I was there, but she was more like she was ignoring. It was like my presence was, I was present, but I was not part of that conversation in that moment in time. And so what happened is that this young woman said, she was talking about her ex-boyfriend and who they were and whatever. And she said very quietly, she said, he was telling me about what it was like in Iraq. And as a soldier, and he was the same age. He was, 22, 23 years old. And she said, out of the blue, I just asked him, have you killed anyone? And there was this pause. And she took a breath and he said, yes. He says, 3 people. And her friend was taken aback, but you could tell, I want to know more. And this was an innocent time. We all thought that this war was going to be over very soon. Who ever knew 16, 17 years later, it was still going on. But that's not my point. My point is that what came into being is, as this sweet, beautiful young woman is sharing about her friend and that he killed 3 people, I'm standing there thinking I'm just not present. And in that moment, as she told the story, I have a vision and I saw each of those instances, the 3 instances with the young man and the other. And I saw both the soldier and the other. And what was happening is that in that moment of the soldier, in that action, there is a reflex that out of that fear and whatever is going on of breathing in. And then there's a reflex on the other side of the other person who is the recipient of what is going to happen. And in that moment, they breathe in. And so I saw these 2 threads going back and forth between these 2 men. One of the young man who breathed in, and then it was the breath out that the other man caught. And he caught it in a way, and as a last breath, and breathe that in. One breathes out the life, the breath of, he let go of that piece of his breath out. And the other man breathed it in, holding on to life. And it was in that moment I had this understanding of perhaps why those who are in combat, that are in that instance, and this goes back eons of time, that there is a thread. The one who is done the killing, and the one who has done the dying, they are intricately connected through that breath. And so the only obvious health response for that young man, the young American soldier, to have was asthma. And he's still holding on to the man in Iraq whose life is gone, who's passed on. I don't tell their story, and I don't tell others to upset or concern. I tell it to share a knowledge that this is how we are all connected, and how this is how we keep things in place, locked in place, or we give the gift. And in a way, during that interaction and at the end of it, and I remember walking away, and I think I went to the beach that time, and I started doing a prayer. And a prayer, because I have no idea whatever happened to the soldier. And I did a prayer of surrendering and releasing those threads, that breath, that in a way that both can be free, that both can let go of that. And so the man in Iraq whose life was gone, that there was an opportunity somehow for his soul to move and transition, or to do whatever it was supposed to do in that place, in that time. I don't know that. I don't have those answers. But this thread of breath was crucial. The other young woman at the time, after this story came through, she said, oh, when her brother and her brother were young, that they would talk to their grandfather about the Vietnam War. And she said he got angry every single time. She said, that is off limits. You do not ask, you do not talk about it. And it immediately told me that he too is holding those pains and fears and doubts and losses and anguish and hurts and all of those things that he saw, along with every other combat veteran. Through war after war and crusade after crusade, that they hold that fabric between life and not. And so I think many of the souls that are locked in the bardo are from that time frame, are in all of those time frames. But this is part of what, and it's part of and I've noticed this for a long time, that I have been called to acknowledge this realm here in a very different way to what most people probably would look at it and go, this is a bad realm, and we've got to, I don't know, do some voodoo or whatever spells and dispelling, the hatred and the anger and all that because they were bad. No, I don't believe that at all. I believe they're just lost. They came out in a place of not having time to adjust, time to accept what and understand and have the messages come through where they're supposed to be. And so when we have mass shootings and when we have people lost in floods and tsunamis and earthquakes and tragedies, that, you know, of all of this, and even accidents, then the time of preparation is nil. And so this is really, ooh, this is, I'm sorry this is going so deep. But I'm not the one who's asking for the messages to come through. I mean, no, I mean, this side is asking for us to have greater understanding of what spirit world is about, of how we can help them, how we can help ourselves ascend and be higher, move into a new dimension. When we help them in this realm above us, when we help them and honor them, honor their lives, honor who they were, in all of the good, the bad, and the indifferent, because they all started out as pure heart, soul beings coming in through the birth of a mother's, through the birth canal of a mother who loved, in majority of cases, loved them, or was given that privilege of birthing them. They didn't start out in the disaster that they ended up with. That was what humanity has created, and we have to learn how to uncreate that through understanding different worlds and different ways. Over the years, I've come to work with a lot of people with health issues. Besides the asthma, another young woman I worked with who had massive burns all the way up here on her hands from a barbecue smoker blowing up. And when I worked with her the next day, and I said, you know, I have no idea what I'm going to help, how I can help you. And she says, yes, you can. Yes, you can. So I did my energy work in the way that I did it. And I had another friend who was there. And in the middle of this working with her, and her fingers were taken back to the bone. There was nothing there, just the bone. And as I'm working, and the pain she was working with was becoming huge, which I already knew, but I kept on being told, you keep going, you keep going. And at a point I told Susan, get on the ground and hold her feet. You are the anchoring rod. You are the grounding rod for her, like an electrical circuit. And so the three of us worked together for maybe 10, probably wasn't even 15 minutes, probably 10 minutes. And I'm working and I'm seeing and feeling, and I'm working under her, right under here. And it's like there's this lock, this thing that's right under here. And that's, I found, where most people, many people hold past life spirit things, and it's where they also get stabbed in the back and hooked, and that's, you know, it's that place of right here. I don't, and so this is right here, and I'm just going, okay, I've got to keep going. I think I've told this before, but, and as I'm working and holding and pulling and I'm feeling it, and I'm watching the infections and the pus sort of pulling out and going, oh my gosh. And all of a sudden, there is this rush, this whoosh. And that which was here was no longer there. It went straight out of her hand. And the next thing this woman says, I want a tissue. And it's like, okay, well, here's a tissue. I'm going to think it was for her eyes, because she was crying, and she's going like this, and I'm going, no. She said, the pain is gone. The pain has gone. And the pain never came back. But I found out later, after when I told her what I said, this is what I need to share with you, because this is what I got. And I said, you have been holding on to this for a long time. I don't know what it is. I don't know who it is. And she said, that was my husband. My husband was killed in a motorcycle accident 10 years earlier. And I was angry. I was annoyed. I didn't want to let go of him. And she'd been holding it. And he was calling out. And I happened to be the vehicle to listen and put it all together. He was calling out to be released. And through that, he was able to evolve in a new way. I don't think it wasn't that he was leaving her, he was evolving. Earlier this week, there was a thread about some of you may have seen it. There was a woman in Virginia who was asking for help and saying, I'm living in a haunted house. It was built in the late 1700s. It is just next to one of the battlefields, the Confederate battlefields. And she's going, and it was also a slave plantation, blah, blah, blah. And of course, many people were saying, oh, I get something, there's a little girl, there's a little boy. I mean, this, a little thing. There was a whole army in that place because they didn't know anywhere else to go. In those battle times, they're there. And that's the only place, it's a home. Somebody keeps living there. This is the only home they understand. And whether it's not theirs, but their soul has no idea of where to go. So they stay in a place that even if it wasn't good, it has a relationship. It's like sometimes, you hear the saying, it's better to stay with the enemy than the enemy you don't know. The one that it's like we don't have to challenge ourselves to go outside of our safety zone. Even the bad things are better known what the bad things are than trying to see if we're going to go into something else worse. Or we don't know if it's going to be better, but we're not going to trust it. So what was really fascinating during that, what I got, and when I was living in Virginia, there were many a time that I didn't know the history. I didn't know where I was going. I would turn and walk and end up on this great big plain. And then I'd find a sign, such and such battlefield. Manassas, battle was here, and there was this battle, and I'm traveling all over Virginia going. And every single time I would walk onto that land, and after a period of time, I am on my knees with tears because I'm feeling the spirit energy. And I realized why after, a period of time, it's like, that's why I'm there. And in the acknowledgement, even in my innocent acknowledgement in those days, I realized that I was helping transmute. I was sort of being an honoring beacon because of the things I'd learned years earlier, to say, you're safe. And if you want to leave, if you want to move to the light, you can. I'll hold that space. And I would sit there for a long, long time, tears rolling, and I'm just going, okay, I'm here. I'm here for a reason. I'm going to hold that space. And it wasn't for one person, it was for many, many. My friend Toby in Kansas City, she does exactly the same thing. She helps groups of souls move on through the work she does with her labyrinths. Now I believe that the urgency, because of the, per se, this dysfunction that is across the planet in pretty much all cultures, and it's really coming to the forefront here because apart from the Civil War and 9/11, there have been no invasions on this land, no wars. This country goes to other places and just basically and ends up the countries are in destruction, and then walk away and leave it for whatever reasons are given. But the damage that is left is not here, it's there, except for the military ones that are coming back. And so the damage within the psyche of the military is understandable. And psychology and psychiatry and medicine do not look to go to the places that I talk about in the same way. They're more likely to create that as schizophrenia or whatever phobia, or throw them on meds and whatever. But I encourage anyone who has loved ones, who had an issue, who feels like they have a calling, an intuitiveness into the psychic realms that have a connection with spirit, to very deliberately ask who you're working with, and is there a way that you can help them move and transition to a higher dimension, to go to a higher light so that they may evolve. Because I really truly believe, through all of the years I've been working with this, is that for our ascension, and that, it's the ultimate, we want to be better. I mean, gosh, I remember, I don't want to live on this planet. I don't belong here. I want to go up there. I want to be there. Well, not having any clue of what that meant, of course. In the title, I put the world of spirit, mortality, and invisibility. And that's the part, and I sort of digressed a little bit, but I think that's the part that is perhaps the most fearful. What happens when we become invisible? Is that why we're afraid of mortality? Is that why we're afraid of death? Is that, when I look at death, I use it as an anagram and say dramatic events activate the heart, which I absolutely believe wholeheartedly, because the event will activate the heart to the absolute positive action, or it will activate the heart to go cold and hard and locked and blocked and vicious. So the dramatic event, and the choice is how our heart is going to respond. But it really comes down to our visibility and invisibility. And in this time, in our cultural time frame, with the transition into television, we became a visual society. Before television, the radio we were a listening society. Before Marconi and before the development of the radio and the transmission, be able to, and telephone to be able to hear and connect with people. The communication with people was through the creative fields. Beyond their mortality, it was what they left in their legacy. And the legacy, even though most of the great painters, composers, writers, dancers, any creative art, those who are most remembered now were not appreciated, were not seen, were not understood back in the days that they were alive. But their legacy is what has lived on through the creativeness, and what we live and see who they were through what they have left behind. Where we are now in this visual technology is that it doesn't have quite the same depth if you are not a creative person. You know, people will create the movies and they will create, photography. Photography is the expression of coming through how you see through the life through the lens. But what's happening with social media and all of this engineering of trying to, per se, manipulate and control the minds, is that people are wanting to be seen. People say, well, why am I doing this? Well, good question. We want to be seen, but is there any substance? Is it telling, when we get all these likes, is it telling anybody about who we are? It's what we give back as a legacy that overrides our mortality, that we leave behind the visible rather than the invisible. We don't disappear into nowhere. There's something left of those who knew us or even didn't know us. To look at a painting, to read a book, to see a story, to see a video that we had made, to hear the music, to whatever that creative force was. And in that space of not us physically not being present, they can connect with the other. And I think it's sort of, that's what happened with my mom. My mom and I we were guide and challenge for each other. We mirrored each other, and it was always we thought we were at odds with each other all the time, trying to get the better of each other or whatever it was. And that's not, and I wish I'd known that. But I remember the day that I was on the phone when she passed, and I hadn't seen her for 13 years. It was just one of these bizarre, weird things. But I was on the phone with her, said everything I needed to say to her, and then the phone went dead. And my son phoned back. She was in Australia, and my son phoned back and he says, "Mom, she's gone." I said, "Yeah, I know." It was the next day, or that night, that she has at that moment, and has ever since, been with me closer than we were ever, per se, in life. I feel like she's living her life, the one that she gave up to have 4 children and all the rest of it. She gave up, and she's living it through me. And sometimes I succeed in giving her great joy, and other times I succeed in perhaps challenging her points of, "I told you shouldn't have done that," that sort of thing. But I feel her closer, and I honor her in that way. So this realm up here is asking us, total strangers perhaps, when we come across something or someone who has passed, then we come across those who are missing in the Bahamas or up the coast or in a war in the Middle East or from famine in Africa or wherever. If something just touches your heart and said, I want to honor anyone who's in this realm, just right around near me right now. If you're coming here and I'm a light, if you feel my presence, you're safe. I want to honor your life, whatever that is, whatever that was. I didn't know you. I'm going to honor you and give you a safe passage. Allow me to be that channel to go up so that you can go up and evolve and move beyond the bardo into the next dimensions that we don't know about yet. And I don't know if it was you or me, but we've just been having these little flashes. So this is a good sign. And so the ones who have gone so suddenly now, and in the shootings, that it's going to, somehow we're going to be able to open some bridges to allow something that we don't have a name for, we don't have understanding for once they get beyond that bardo, that those energies, spirits, children, whoever they were, that there's an avenue of a new path opening, that spirit can come through and it can go and touch the loved ones that are left here. To be the hummingbird, to be a tree, to be the sunflower, to be a person, giving a stranger coming up and giving a hug and saying, I'm just giving this to you because I felt like somebody wanted to show it to you. Or I want to share a poem with you, or I want to, whatever that is. Total strangers now are going to become, if we allow it, the messengers for here to pass through. And in doing so, we're helping clear this dark clouds of thousands of years of souls locked in this space. And they are asking, and we do it for one, we do it for lineage. They are asking for this clearing so they can evolve to lighten the load up above us. Because I'm sure many of you feel like there's like this pressure, and we're saying we're trying to ascend in the light. You haven't got a clue. We can't. It's too much pressure here. We've got too many things going on up here, which didn't exist before the computer age. And the phone age, the satellites and everything, that didn't exist eons, years back, 35 years, 40 years ago. Didn't exist. Now we've got a whole new deal. We have to work with this realm for spirit to be able to move through, clear these layers out here, to also help diffuse all of the, and neutralize all of the electrical, satellite, cell tower fields. They have that ability, once we give them permission, to move beyond. There's probably not very many people that are going to have, they're going to think I am absolutely wacko. It's okay, I've been called wacko before. Yet over the years, somehow down the road, most of the time, or many of the time, somebody go and say, oh, we've just discovered this, science has just come up to this, blah, 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 whatever it is. And it's like, okay, that's a version of what I just shared, whatever. Sometimes we need to step out, and I was not happy on stepping this one out, but I'm happy now. This realm here is calling out across the planet, beyond culture, beyond religion, beyond skin color, beyond beliefs. Every single one of them has a heart and a soul. And they are calling out for assistance to move and honor their existence and their presence on the planet, whatever that time frame was that they came in. And somehow we don't know who they were, we don't know what they left, but they left a legacy, an imprint. And if we can connect a little tiny bit with that speck of that imprint and say, I'm going to honor that imprint, I'm going to help that imprint move higher beyond the cloud of that ceiling and go to the next dimension. And I'm going to ask you, if at some point you come back, you can pass the beam it on down when you're healed, when you have evolved to the next place that you're going. Come and share some of that information with us, that we too can be brought up. Because love and light is one thing. Consciousness, shifting consciousness is another. But we have to know what the connections are between the love, the light, the consciousness, and the space of the universe where our souls have been vibrating in particles for as long as people have been on this planet. That's where we've come from. These particles, billions and billions and trillions of particles, and they vibrate into us and they create a soul snowflake, snowball of soul particles. We've been everybody over time, and now we've come in, and all of this is our soul this time around. We're a bit of everything. Our experiences, the people who've come across our path, they are from other times. They were us, we were them. So when we're working with here, we're working with here. We're healing ourselves here as well. On this dimension and all of the other dimensions. We don't know how many. Third dimension, fourth dimension, sixth dimension, eighth dimension, 10th dimension. They're words. They're words. So much is beyond words. And recently I've been doing a lot of work with these crystal bowls and working with people, and they don't even know what they're working through until the end of it, and then it's like, oh, that's what it was. See, I'm not going to tell you what it is because that's for us to discover. But in that space of the sound, and it completes, and it's like, do you want to share anything? More times than not, I don't have words for what I experienced. Either is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's like, oh no. It's like, okay. It's true. When something touches the depths of who we are in a way that you know, but you can't put into words, that is coming from a very high place inside of you. And that ultimately is where we want to go. Well, once again, I go all over the map to get back to our mortality and our invisibility. If we are afraid of our mortality or afraid of the death and loss of our mortality, create. Create so that you have a map, a visual map. You're leaving a visual map of who you are. You might want to write do some videos, you might want to write some stories, do some paintings, do a dance, music, photography, whatever. But create something so that there's a legacy, there's something to leave behind, that you will always be visible. If the invisibility and the loss of being seen is there, it's huge. I think one last little thought. I think the fearless leader, I think his fear of being invisible is greater than his need for wealth and power and possessions. It wasn't until this morning that suddenly hit, and thinking of all of the things, like, yeah, perhaps as a child, he was not seen because his father was so busy making billions of dollars. And so that was, and now it's a different, it's coming out, and it's coming out every day, to be seen, to be seen, to be seen, to be seen. Thank you for being present. I allow myself to be a vehicle to pass a message on. Some of the messages will be heard by some people in certain ways. Others will hear other pieces of the information. Some it will not resonate with, and some others it will be down the road that they'll find it. We are all the same. It happens to each of us. We all have come and go with our teachers and with our guides and our friends and relationships and things we do. It all is the same flow, that each thing that comes into our space has a message, has a clue of where we are, who we are, and what is being asked to pay attention to in that moment, in that day. So many blessings to you. Many blessings to the beings and the souls and the loved ones who are watching in the realms that we cannot see. May you all be blessed and healed and be joyful, so that one day our world, the world we live in each day, can see joy and peace and harmony. So now.